It's Eshani, aka Total Makeup Junkie 101. So today I am going to be talking all about the Becca Jaclyn Hill collaboration collection. I say it at the beginning of every video, but I have gotten countless numbers of requests to review this collection, so I did end up picking up all 4 of the new items that are a part of it. You guys know that I already did put up a blog post with full pictures, swatches, a full written review on my thoughts on each and every one of these products. So if you guys want to see a full written review, it is linked in the description box for you. Now, for those of you who are new to my channel, welcome. I really hope you guys decide to stick around by subscribing. But for those of you guys who are long-time subscribers or are familiar with my videos, you know that I don't play around. I like to think of my channel as the honest place that you guys can come and really get some very brutally honest feedback on a product. I do feel like there are some products that maybe don't live up to my expectations and I just don't feel like are really worth the hype or worth the price. And if I feel that way, I'm gonna tell you. So anyways, let's go ahead and start with the thing that is the most hyped up, that sells out the quickest, that I think will be the hardest to get your hands on, and that is the face palette. So what you're looking at right now is actually the box that it comes in. I do really like it. I like the back of the box. I like how everything is laid out really nicely for you. And then this is the actual palette itself. I am just going to say this here and now, the packaging is gorgeous. It's almost like this plastic, like acrylic covering this something that feels very heavy, almost like metal, but I'm sure it's not metal. I'm sure it's just a plastic. And then when you open the packaging, it isn't magnetic. It kind of snaps. And then this is what the inside looks like. There is a really big, really nice mirror in here. And then there is like this little protective plastic, and that is what the actual palette looks like. So in this palette, you get 1 of the luminous blushes, which is called Rosé Spritz. You get 2 of the mineral blushes. We have Amaretto and Pamplemousse. And then we have 2 of the Shimmering Skin Perfector Pressed. Of course, you get Champagne Pop and Prosecco Pop. Here are swatches of everything in this face palette. Of course, the first 3 swatches are the blushes in Rosé Spritz, Amaretto, and Pamplemousse. And then the last 2 are Champagne Pop and Prosecco Pop. You can see that every single thing in here swatches really beautifully. Everything in here looks really good on my tan complexion. To be perfectly honest, I'm actually really shocked about that, because more often than not, when companies release a face palette, it doesn't usually flatter a complexion like mine, or at least there's going to be like 1 or 2 shades that don't work on me. The great thing about this is every single color in here I can wear. That's pretty much unheard of, so I really like that. The quality of everything in here is 2 thumbs up. The blushes are creamy, smooth, blendable, pigmented. The Shimmering Skin Perfector Pressed, I will say that this Champagne Pop doesn't differ in color to my full-size Champagne Pop, but I do feel like the texture of it maybe is a little drier. That doesn't really affect the performance. It still shows up super bright and luminous on the face, so I don't think that's really anything to be concerned about. I do think that the difference between Champagne Pop and Prosecco Pop is pretty subtle. I think on a lighter complexion, you can tell more that Prosecco Pop is a lot more golden, but on my complexion, you could even see in the swatches, they don't differ that much. And if they don't differ very much in a concentrated swatch, they definitely don't differ when you diffuse them onto your face. So in that respect, I do kind of wish that the highlighters were different one next to the other. You do get 20.4 grams of product, or 0.27 ounces of product in here. It doesn't give me an exact breakdown of how much of each product you're getting, but I am assuming that you're getting more of the highlighters than you are of the blushes. This palette retails for $52, and do I think this is worth the price and worth the hype? Yes. This is amazing. I am going to be one of the many to tell you This is a good one. Okay, the next product I want to talk about is the eye palette. This is the Becca Jaclyn Hill Champagne Collection eye palette. Okay, I'm gonna awkwardly pause the video here really quick and comment on the fact that Becca and Jaclyn Hill decided to pull this eyeshadow palette off the shelves. If you guys didn't know, there has been a lot of problems with the quality of this palette, and I know that the eyeshadow formula is not the same as what we are commonly seeing with Becca's shadows. I'm sure that by now many of you guys saw Jaclyn Hill's Snapchats where she kind of commented on that and commented on the fact that they are not going to sell this palette anymore due to the fact that the quality isn't up to par. In my honest opinion, that was a very, very gutsy move. I don't really commend or applaud Jaclyn Hill necessarily for that, primarily because I know this is a collaboration, and at the end of the day, Jaclyn Hill is not the person who put in this giant investment and this giant amount of capital to make this palette a reality. At the end of the day, makeup costs money. It costed Becca a lot of money to get this palette made, and the fact that they decided to, you know what, we're just gonna pull it and not sell it and just swallow the cost, I think that is very, very commendable. I know people have very, very mixed feelings about that. I do applaud Becca for pulling something that they know is not up to their normal quality. I don't know why this palette was released in the first place. I don't know who decided that it was okay to kind of just speed through the process of producing this particular piece of the collection and put in a lot of heart and soul into the rest of it and think that this would just fly under the radar. Obviously it didn't, but I will say mistakes do happen, and I think for Becca to swallow their pride, swallow the cost, and say, you know what, we are not going to allow something like this in our brand, especially with Jaclyn's name on it, I think that is very, very commendable. So that's pretty much all I'm gonna say about this situation. I don't know what's going to happen with the, I'm sure, millions and millions of units that Becca has ordered of these palettes. I have no idea, but I think it's very commendable. So anyways, let's move on into my review of the palette. This is what the palette itself looks like. It's very, very thin, sleek. It comes in a slightly more cheapy feeling plastic packaging, but it's not like bad. Now, when I first saw this palette, I will be perfectly honest, I didn't really feel inspired by it. This is what the inside of it looks like. So if you guys just look at it, it is a very, very neutral palette. There's 5 different colors. The first 2 are very, very, very shimmery, almost like a Makeup Geek foiled shadow, super dense and rich and buttery. And then these last 3 here are all matte. So here are swatches of the 5 shades in the eyeshadow palette. From left to right, we have Chardonnay, Champagne Toast, Cordial, Cognac, and Bordeaux. I do think the first 2 colors are pretty. They're not unique. In fact, that Champagne Toast color is actually a little flaky, so it doesn't really have the best, most smooth pigmentation. In terms of the texture of these, I've used this palette a few times now, and I do think these shimmery colors apply best with your finger because they do have that really rich, dense, metallic shimmer to it, and I just like patting it all over the lid with my finger. The matte shades they're not really my favorite. They are pretty powdery, they're not that pigmented, and they blend away. I don't think any of the colors in here are unique. Not a single one of these colors is unique. I have done a couple of looks using this palette, but every single look I do looks the same because the contrast between the colors in here aren't a lot. I mean, the darkest color you're getting in here is still not very dark, and there's no light matte color to use as a highlight, so I don't know. I'm not really crazy about this palette. This retails for $40, and I think for $40 you can most definitely get a better palette, better in quality, more unique, and more colors. I don't know. I don't think this is worth it. I want to wrap up this review by talking about these two other products. These are technically new and a part of this collection, but the formulas are not new. These are just released in the new Champagne Pop color. So first off, we have the Shimmering Skin Perfector Liquid, which is such a classic Becca formula. And then we also have the Shimmering Skin Perfector Poured. These two products in particular are not limited edition, so you can pick them up at any time. The other two products, however, the two palettes are limited edition. So if you're interested in either of those, you should pick those up first. But let's go ahead and talk about these. So in terms of the Shimmering Skin Perfector Liquid, like I said, this is a very, very classic Becca formula. It comes in a really big pump top container. You get 1.7 ounces of product, which is quite a bit of product, but I will say the price tag on this is pretty high. This is a $41 liquid highlight. Now the cool thing about these is they're very, very versatile. A lot more versatile than a pressed highlighter would be. Yes, you can use this as a traditional highlighter, do your foundation, do all your face makeup, and then pat this on the tops of your cheeks and down your nose and everything. Or you can blend this in with your foundation. You can use it under your foundation to create some type of different look. The poured version, however, does come in like a little compact, basically. It looks like this, and it is a cream version. It's almost as if they took the liquid and they pumped it into a pan and then they kind of let it set a little bit. So the poured version is a little denser, it's a little richer in pigment, and I just take this in right with my finger and then tap it onto my cheeks. I feel like it works as a really, really nice base if you use it in combination with the pressed version. Now I will say the poured version is quite a bit more expensive than this. This is $38, so a couple dollars cheaper, but you only get 0.28 ounces versus the 1.7 ounces you're getting in the liquid. So that's just something to keep in mind. So here are swatches of all three different versions of the color Champagne Pop. From left to right, we have the original pressed Champagne Pop highlighter, then we have the poured version, and then lastly we have the liquid version. As you can see, it's almost like a pigment gradient because I definitely feel like the pressed version builds up the quickest. It's definitely the most sparkly, and it definitely just has the biggest punch of color. Then the poured version is definitely a little bit more watered down. It's a little bit more buildable, not as bam in your face. And then lastly we have the liquid version, which definitely is the most liquidy, as you would expect. It doesn't mean it doesn't have a punch of highlight, but it's more for that subtle lit from within type of glow. Honestly, I do really like both of these formulas. I have been a big fan of the Shimmering Skin Perfector liquids for a really long time and the poured versions, but I already own Opal in both of these formulas, and to be honest, the formulas are so thin and not as punchy and not as pigment strong that I feel like Champagne Pop next to Opal, maybe in a concentrated swatch, looks different in these two formulas, but once you either blend it in with your foundation or you blend it onto your cheek or however you're planning on using it and it's kind of diffused out, you can't really tell a difference. I'm sure that by this point, most of you guys probably already own Opal in one, if not both of these versions. And I think if you already own it, you don't need to get these. So yeah, I think that is pretty much everything out of this entire collection. The only thing I can really wholeheartedly, fully recommend is this face palette. I think it's really good. It's a great value for your money. You get to try so many different products, and the colors themselves are all very, very usable, and that is what I love. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to thumbs it up if you liked it, and subscribe if you guys haven't already, and I will catch you guys in my next video very soon. I'll see you then. Bye! This one comes in a Trinity. It's called the Black Metal Trinity, and then this one is Solo. This is called Actual Powder. It does have the little Jeffree Star embossing on it, which is very, very cool.